Welcome to another Omenani series. It is the Tortoise Igwe, Ezikolomuo. Today I want to discuss a very important topic, which I have titled the Tortoise, the Wolf, and the Ram generation. This topic is very dear, not just to me, but to everybody who is an Ndi Igbo. And I will enjoin you to try as much as possible to share this video if you find this teaching instructive. If it needs to replay the video, please, but this video needs to go out. It needs to go out. It needs to reach as many Igbo people as possible. I know it will definitely get to many Igbo people as possible. So this teaching was given to me about 3 weeks ago, and it took me time to expound it, to understand the depth of this teaching. The tortoise, the wolf, and the ram generation. It was Frantz Fanon, I think an Algeria academician trained in France, that said, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Fanon was trying to underscore the undeniable universal truth of generational mission. Life and history is made via generation. Life and history is made via generation. We might live life as an individual, but history most times is made as collective. Even if at times when an individual makes history, the history an individual makes tends to either affect a generation positively or negatively. Let's take Hitler for example. If you feel that the decision he made with his Nazism in Germany or nationalism push, that is an individual decision, you can see the collective impact, the generational impact of his decision. Think of Benito Mussolini of Italy with fascism. Think of Napoleon of France. Even if you make a decision as an individual, your individual ambition drives you. It can push you to the extent that your actions, you have a generational impact. So life and history is made via generation. So that's why we say that what? Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Our Igbo ancestors agree with this position when they stated, this means some generation, their job is to sell off their homeland, while the job of another generation is to recover lands that were sold off by a particular generation. In AlaIgbo today, we have witnessed 3 prominent generations within the last 100 years. Within the last century, we have witnessed 3 generation, or what I'll call 3 generational shift or paradigm. A kind of generational paradigm shift. So it's important we examine the roles played by these 3 generations if we have to make sense of our future. Our people will say, those who do not know where the rain started to beat them will not know where the rain dried up on their body. While Socrates said what? An unexamined life is not worth living. Now, juxtaposing these 2 philosophical sayings will help us to appreciate the need for this generational examination that we are about to do today. Their role in getting AlaIgbo, these generations, each individual generation, their role in getting AlaIgbo where it is today. I must warn that this teaching is purely my opinion. It should not be taken as a historical statement of fact. Also, the generational attributes that I'm about to espouse are not blankets. This means that one can be a member of a particular generation and will not take the shape and form, the thinking of that particular generation. However, I stand to believe that the majority of each generation takes the shape and form of their generation. This is done knowingly or unknowingly. We must take cognizance of the overriding fact that life is mainly lived through groupthink. And a lot of humans find safety in following what they see the majority doing, either good or bad. This in sociological science is known as what? Herd mentality. You know, when everybody tends to move with the fad of the moment, with what is happening, what is trending. 2 years ago, it was cancel culture. People We are jumping on canceling people without trying to have an individual opinion. Everybody is canceling this person, they are going with it. So this is what we call head mentality in sociological science. Okay, now here are this generation. This is Igbo generation. When I say that the tortoise, the wolf, and the ram generation, it purely appeals or deals with the Igbos, Ndi Igbo. The tortoise generation. The tortoise generation are people, whether dead or alive, who are between the ages of 100 to 75 years old. If the person is alive, the person is within this age bracket, the 100 to 75 years old, or 75 to 100 years old. 75 to 100 years old. I call this generation the tortoise what? Generation. This generation are the group that witnessed the cultural clash that came with the introduction of Western civilization into an Igbo or into the Igbo civilization. They saw the good side and the bad side of Igbo civilization firsthand, and also saw the good side and the bad side of the European civilization. This generation, being the first to be thoroughly educated in Western definition of education, saw the gaping holes in the new way, but we are also wise enough to know that the old way of their ancestors, of our Igbo ancestors, have no answer to the fast changing times that we are in. They understood it was dangerous to totally abandon the ways of their ancestors. Emphasis on totally abandon. They understood it was dangerous to totally abandon the ways of their ancestors and cling to the new way. Therefore, they resolved to hold on to the two, the best way they can, the Igbo civilization and the Western civilization. This is why among this tortoise generation, you will find a lot of educated and not so educated Ndi Igbo who married more than one wife, who were the Akajiofo of their families, of their communities, despite their education. They saw no harm in the killing of ram for the offer that they were holding. They saw no harm in celebrating some rites or rituals of the family, which they have been chanced upon to be the Isiobi or to be the incumbent person that are supposed to carry out those rituals. Despite their Western education, they either directly or indirectly took up the traditional responsibilities that they were supposed to be in charge of. Among the tortoise generation, you will see Ndi Igbo who tried not to make any distinction between going to church and following the ways of their ancestors. When it comes to burial, marriage, title taking, and other traditional rites, they don't see the optics that they were seeing. The traditional religion and the Christian religion was not black and white. This one is evil and this one is good. Their optics were not black and white. It was kind of colored, or should I say flexible. It was flexible. They were flexible in their optics or in their thinking, in making any distinction between the traditional religion of their Igbo ancestors and the European religion or civilization. So that's why among these people, you will see Christians who they are not out condemning the ways of their ancestors. Rather, they openly partook in the traditional ways of their ancestors and also openly partook in whatever Christian ritual that the church required of them. The tortoise generation saw firsthand the potency of traditional system from their fathers. They saw firsthand the potency of the traditional system from their fathers, who were purely pagans, who were the present or the incumbent Akajiofos, people in charge of the traditional, the fabric of the Igbo society as of then. Those who didn't go to school, those who didn't attend church, who were never converted, they saw firsthand the potency of the traditional religion or the traditional Igbo system. And also, they saw firsthand and the gains in the ways of the white man or the white civilization or the European civilization. They saw the gains. No matter the potency of the traditional religion, they saw its potency and its limitation. They also witnessed the, the gains, the opportunities that the white man was bringing with the Western civilization. So they were careful not to take any side. This generation did not hide in participating in both systems. A case of Enyendebe, Enyendeba. They proudly went to church by the day and went to participate in Egomo as well by the day. They didn't try to see it from a black and white perspective. They didn't try to see that the ways of their ancestors were demonic and satanic, that the way of their ancestors were evil and should be completely jettisoned. No, that's not how the Tortoise generation viewed it. Now, let's look at the wolf generation. Let's examine the people like the generation I've called the wolf generation. The wolf generation are those, the Igbos, between the ages of 50 to 70 years. Remember, the tortoise generation are between the 75 to 100 years. The wolf generation are the Igbos who are between 50 to 70 years. As of now that I'm making this video, 2024. This generation is what I call the generation of Igbo extremists. Generation of Igbo extremists. They saw the generation above them as sellouts, chameleons, and tortoise. The wolf generation wanted to take a position, and they did take a position. These ones saw things in black and white. Apparently, the devastation that came with the Nigerian Biafran War forced this generation to stand clearly with Christianity. Some of them strongly believed the war was a fight between Muslim versus Christianity. Obviously then, it was as if the real headquarters of Christianity in Nigeria was in AlaIgbo. And indeed, the world Christian community really showed up for the Biafrans, that's the Biafran Igbo, during the war. That Ndi Igbo did not starve to death during the war was largely through donations from Christian bodies worldwide. So imagine that this generation, many of them were in their 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14 years, and there was hunger in the land, and they were made to know that at that early age, that the milk, the little food, the little rice that they were eating was from Caritas, was from this group, from this World Believers Distant Association, Bible Society of the World, as in so many Christian organizations were the ones rallying around, ferrying food into AlaIgbo, into the Biafran side, into the ravaged side. Also, during this war, a lot of foreign Christian priests, Irish missionaries, as in French missionaries, English missionaries, a lot of these priests stood with their Igbo congregation all through the war. They didn't leave AlaIgbo. They didn't leave AlaIgbo. They were there. Some of them were going through the brutality of the war with their Igbo congregation. So, in fact, after the war, because of the prominent role this priest played in helping the Igbos to survive the war, the federal side, as the Nigerian government, had to expel and export some of these priests from Nigeria. Some of them were expelled. They were deported. Many foreign priests were deported out of Nigeria who were in AlaIgbo. In fact, almost all of them were deported out of what? Nigeria. They were sent back to their various nations. And the Igbo clergy that took over from them ensured, they now have the onerous task to ensure that this fire of God, that these Western men from God, these angels from God, that this fire they lit do not die. Their tenacity, there means this Igbo clergy, their tenacity gave birth to the rise of Pentecostalism in AlaIgbo. The message of hope through Christ was madly and extremely preached to the Igbo war survivors, to these little Igbo war survivors, people in their teens, the hope of Christ. They had no option. A drowning man had no option but hope. So they had to cling to the hope, the message, the hope, the message of hope through Christ. So they preached this message with mad extremism. This set of people ensured a stand was taken for the only one true God. They did not want to entertain any form of ambivalence or sitting on the fence. You are either with the God who stood for the Igbos during the war or against God. It was this generation that began to see evil in the Igbo traditional system. They began forming communal believers associations. Through these associations, they started assaulting shrines and traditional institutions. So many traditional institutions, so many shrines, so many uh, important fabrics of the Igbo society were destroyed by many communal believers associations. To stand on their way means you are an agent of Satan, an agent of darkness. Because they were young and have the numbers, they decimated every form of opposition and voice of caution. So, after the war, gradually from 70s to 80s and at its peak in the 90s, it was a period of what? Destroying traditional altars in Igbo, all over Igbo. Shrines, traditional artifacts, total destruction, annihilation, stealing, looting, plundering, up to the early 2000s. So it was this generation that sowed and nurtured the Christian religious extremism among Igbos. Among Ndi Igbo, this religious extremism, Christian religious extremism, that as an Igbo you must be a Christian or nothing. In fact, they won't entertain you being a Muslim, talk less of traditional religion. The same way they will treat you in the same light, be you Islam, if you want to be a Muslim or be a traditional, they treat you the same. They deal with you wrongly. So it's either black or white. It's either you are with God, the Christian God, Jesus. If what I call Ewele Jesus Allah, it's either you are with Jesus or you are against the cross. I must say that the Tortoise generation tried to put off a fight, but they couldn't. There was a little persecution in the beginning against these believers. But like I said, the numbers and time and energy, youthful energy was on their side. So with time, they strangled the resolve of a Tortoise generation and decimated them. That everybody who was, even those who are all out in traditional religion, or those, the Tortoise people, they went back to the fringes. Like I say, to stand on the ways of these extremists, this wolf generation, means you are an agent of what? Darkness, an agent of devil, an agent of Satan. Because they were young and have the numbers, they decimated every form of opposition and voice of caution. This wolf generation destroyed completely all traditional institutions in AlaIgbo. They ensure you dare not publicly claim you are a traditionalist. They started this issue of Igbo's Nejoka, priest, trying to put Igbo's priest, blending, as in making Igbo's to conform to traditional tenets. As in, through every means possible, they took over the traditional institutions, they took over burials, they took over every form of important aspect of Igbo traditional society. The wolf generation committed a lot of taboos, and when the effect comes, they secretly hide, like Saul in the Bible, to go and make inquiries from the traditionalists. They secretly hide to make inquiries from the remaining traditionalists who are now in hiding, the ones they banished and publicly condemned. And they also secretly solve whatever thing that comes out or stop that is on their path. They solve that problem traditionally, privately, without you knowing. After doing it, they will go back to church and be condemning the same traditional religion. This, the wolf generation, people between 50 to 70 years, study this pattern, study all this explanation, you will see these qualities or these features among the wolf generation. The ram generation. Here comes the ram generation. The ram generation are those between 25 to 45 years presently in AlaIgbo. or Igbos who are between 25 to 45 years. These are the people I call the Ram generation. Igbos, you say, ewu pulumpi, makazina nne pulumpi, ebunumelu nke nsata. Ewu pulumpi, makazina nne pulumpi, ebunumelu nke nsata. Ram means ebunu. So, this generation, we are born Christians. The Ram generations, we are born Christians, but became tired of the Christian dogmas and doctrines. Because of this fatigue, they began to go back to the ways of their ancestors in their search for solutions. In their search for solutions, they began to look back to the ways of their ancestors that have been condemned from when they were a child. They were indoctrinated, was bad, was satanic, was evil. Emana asena nwata toluo ochowo ife gbulu nne. Nwata tolukwana ochowo ife gbulu nne egbue. So the Ram generation, as they are growing up, they started asking questions to find out some answers. They were not answers they were getting from Christianity was not satisfactory enough. Any right thinking person will see through the hypocrisy of Christianity in AlaIgbo. So they are not natural traditionalists by birth, but they are becoming traditionalists anyways in their quest for answers. This generation are trying to see if they can restore the damage done by the wolf generation. Among this generation, you see courageous young Ndi Igbo who are coming out again to identify as traditionalists or defend the ways of their ancestors while still being a Christian. Some are still Christian, but they are defending the ways of their ancestors. They are not trying to see their ancestors as the bad devil, as in the devils that the wolf generation painted them to be, either in school or in the church. The Ram generation are making moves to restore shrine, ofo, and obis that were destroyed by the wolf generation. Day by day, they are returning fire for fire on any attempt to blackmail or ridicule Igbo gods, tradition, or their ancestors. Their voices are getting louder and can no longer be truly ignored by the wolf generation, who are in control of spheres of influence in AlaIgbo. The wolf generation are still presently in control, and the Ram generation are trying as much as possible with their voices to make sure that their voices are not ignored by the wolf generation, who are control of centers of power in AlaIgbo. If the Ram generation succeeds, they will lay the foundation for the renaissance of another Igbo civilization. To this end, I repeat, the saying, I quote again Frantz Fanon, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. If you are among the Ram generation, this quote is for you. Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. I pray the Ram generation does not betray its mission, because all indicators show that they are the Awolona Satana. I pray they run the race or their race successfully. I pray they run their race successfully. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, and share. I would like to hear from some of you. If you have any question, please, you can reach me through the number on the screen, or my email address, or my other social media handles. Thank you. Thank you.